Good morning, Periscope. This is EnvyThisStuff. Wow, man, I'm on a total blast of sunlight here. Good morning, Dion. I'm EnvyThisStuff. You guys can ever reach me at EnvyThisStuff@gmail.com. I do a whole bunch of stuff. Right now, I'm thinking of doing a Q&A session about exhibiting, but you could also be a buyer. You buy stuff from people? Yes, actually, sometimes I do. At the moment, I get about half of my stuff from China, and the other stuff from distributors in the area I'm in. I'm lucky enough that I live in New York City, so there's lots of distributors because they have lots of people here. On top of that, we also have a major harbor. Most of the merchandise coming into New York City is probably going through North New Jersey, through the Hudson River there, past the Verrazano Bridge. And there's tons of container ships that are brought in. Right. I mainly buy stuff for wholesale, though, for resale. I do buy stuff for personal use as well. And in fact, I'm on my way to a distributor in Manhattan right now. I have a meeting with him, so I figured, why don't I chat about some of this stuff? But there's lots of places to source your products from, and lots of questions, even if you're not doing a flea market, because I've also exhibited at conferences and expositions and stuff like that. I have a pretty involved background, when I have a long life story. I'm not going to get into that this second, but so we'll have a chat on my way into Manhattan. I'm leaving Queens now. The view account just died. Did I lose my connection? Good morning, Mr. Charles. Hey, I have a question for you guys. Did you guys get notices that I just started the scope? Because my view account just cut down in half. And I looked at some other people's counts, and I noticed their counts are all dropped significantly as well. So either Periscope has another bug, at least on its site, or they're doing cleanup from trolls or something. Anyway, so I'm EnvyThisStuff. I'm on my way to Manhattan to meet with the distributor, and I figure from time to time, how about we just do a QA session about exhibiting somewhere? It could be exhibiting at a conference center, it could be exhibiting at a hotel, or it could just be doing a flea market. So, there's lots of things that could be talked about. Where to get your products from, how do you price your products, how do you pick a spot, what do you do when you have an annoying customer, what do you do if you have an annoying vendor next to you, how do you get to the places you sell at, etc., etc., etc. So, pretty much going to leave this open. This may be an epic failure if nobody has any questions. If that's so, that's fine. I have a lot of areas we could talk about, and I'm just putting my tentacles out here to see who might be interested in what. I also sell on eBay and so on, and use that as a way to complement the other stuff I'm doing through my other sales. My trip now is going to be it could be 40 minutes. So at max, we're going to talk for 40 minutes. And at min, if nobody has any questions, this scope might be over already. Some of you know me already, but I noticed you come in and out. I have a feeling this scope is not getting broadcast properly. Laverty, are you still there? Let me use him as a test. Hello, Bling. How you doing? No, Laverty is not responding. I think this scope is kicking out all over the place. So let me repeat again. What is any of the cons of the flea market? Yeah, there is a few cons of the flea market. There's a perceived value is one of them. Yeah, finally the snow has melted. And I think we finally have good weather here in New York City. A thing about a flea market is there's a perceived value that you're going to sell your product cheap. And even if you have a good product. So I don't bring all my products to the flea markets because people just will not pay for them. And especially that I have low-end products, Like one of the things I do to get people over to my table is I sell $1 cables. You can't get cheaper than that besides free. So if I'm selling $1 cables, which is a super discount, you can't even get dollar cables wholesale from most places. Then how do I end up selling a $200 speaker on the other side of the table? So there's this contradictory thing that goes on. And people have this expectation when they go into a flea market that they're supposed to bargain. I don't know where that expectation comes from, but they do it. And for many people, it's a game. Sometimes they don't even care that they're going to buy the product from you. They're just going to negotiate with you for the fun of it. So there's that issue. That said, I do a whole bunch of different markets, and in some markets there's almost no negotiation. In some other markets, everybody negotiates like crazy. Even on the dollar tables, they want a discount. Even other vendors sometimes. It's part of the appeal for what? Yes, it is. It is. Right. So you think as a vendor you're there to sell something. So you think all the people who are there, they're there to buy something. But it turns out that that's not true. My guess is 50% of the people are just there to get fresh air. Okay? So if you can sell to them, that's cool too. So half your market's gone already. There's families going out there who are just taking a family walk. Some flea markets have parks. So they go to get the kid an ice cream. The kid gets to play in the park, and then they leave. Some people are just walking up and down the aisle. I scoped a few weeks ago. There's even people who go to the market multiple times a day. Every week, the same person, every week, multiple times a day. And it makes no sense. You're going to find that bargain or not. Hopefully that answered your question. Can you repeat it again? Because I may have something more to say about it. I forgot what you asked me already. What did you ask me? Why do people go to flea markets? And by the way, I've exhibited at conferences selling computer software and hardware and other things like that, and it's often just as true. Half the people there are not serious, and then you have to work on the people who are serious. There's lots of strategies and techniques about that as well. Does anybody have any questions? Again, I'm EnvyThisStuff. You can reach me currently at EnvyThisStuff@gmail.com. My website got hijacked, partly through my own fault. So there's nowhere else I can send you except for that. So if people have follow-up questions or they feel them more personal, you can always email me. Realize, though, that I'm only one person, and it might take me a few days to answer. And if you send me nonsense, I'm not going to answer you at all. So what we're trying to do is talk about just general questions people may have as both a buyer and a seller at some sort of an exhibition. Right, it's also a social event, which is good. But that's actually good. Lots of friends meet to go to some markets. I'm going to do a market, when's the 24th? Is that next Sunday? Called Stormville Flea Market. It's at an airport, and it's not held every week. And people plan out as a major group, both families, whole families, friends, people who haven't met for years. This market's about once every 6 weeks. And it's normally one of my best ones. Yes, New York is a good market, that's true. There's lots of stuff that happens here. It's really New Jersey. Oddly, New York City does not have one excellent market in and of itself. There's a bunch of smaller ones. Especially if, and we're kind of focusing on flea markets here, but there's other markets, which I'll call shows. Like you might go to an antique flea market. Not garbage junk, but true antiques. That it's all 100 years old, it's all vintage, and then there's everything in between. There's a few of those in Manhattan that run, I think, every day of the week. And I mentioned some that at some scopes a few weeks ago that I ended up posting on YouTube. By the way, people, my stuff is on Catch Me now for the past week or so. I don't remember when I started it. But yes, New York is a good market. So in this Stormville market, it's kind of a place that people gather. The good news on that market is that people actually buy as well. Would you think that NYC would have at least one killer market? Wouldn't you? It used to. If anybody has any notion about horse racing, we have Aqueduct, the Aqueduct racetrack, which now has a casino affiliated with it. Well, well, there used to be a giant flea market there, which is one of the biggest, at least on the East Coast. Probably, on a good day, probably 2,000 vendors. It was super duper humongous. And the city and the state decided that the racetrack should have the property. They're renting it, I guess, from the state. But they decided that since there was going to be the so-called upscale casino, that these flea-bitten flea market vendors didn't qualify to end up using the land. And the silly thing is, the parking lot that was used for it is pretty much still empty. And this has gone on for maybe 3 years. So what happened after that was that people tried to contact the mayor and each borough. I'm moving back to New York City in 2 days. Wow. We contacted the borough presidents, because we have Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island, and Brooklyn. So people contacted some of the borough presidents, and nobody really helped anybody. A perfect venue is Citi Field, where the Mets play. They don't play every day, and there's lots of away games. And even if it was only every other week, one guy managed to convince them to use one of the alternate parking lots for that. And that actually tried to happen last summer, and the management screwed the guy bad. They told him he can use parking. In the meantime, most of the parking was going to only be for night games. And people before him tried to get Citi Field. So he was actually managed to get this alternate thing. Yeah, it screwed up, and it would have been beautiful. Every freaking highway goes to it. Every person in New York City knows where Citi Field is. And it's in a location that's a blend of all cultures. There's Mexicans, there's Indians, there's whites, there's Spanish, there's Chinese, there's everything. Flushing's near it. There's high-end people, there's low-end people, and it would have been such a great mixture. But they kept screwing him. They kept telling him he couldn't do it, so they brought him down to every other week, and then it was once a month, and then it just died. But we have other locations too. I don't know why it can't happen. And we also have, what happens is some flea markets tried to be set up in Long Island, and politics happened. They said there was too much garbage from it. Yeah. Well, actually, there's a guy now doing a Queens night market, which I'm considering doing it. The Queens night market, he started it last summer, and it was held at the New York Hall of Science, the parking lot of there, which is right next to Flushing Meadow. If anybody caught my scope from 2 or 3 days ago, or maybe it was yesterday, I actually scoped walking around in the park there. It's right across the street from where I was talking. And then he moved it because they wouldn't let him do it for the rest of the season. And then he moved into Jamaica, New York. And I don't know how much success he had there. And it's being reheld. In fact, I think it opens up again this Saturday. Yeah, I enjoyed that. And what's funny, there was no agenda, and we just went with it. Anyway, he's allowing people to sell multicultural foods only. And it can only be at most $5 each. I went to it a few times. It was super duper packed. In fact, I'm considering, because I can't do this all day and then do stuff, but I'm considering some way to get prepackaged cultural desserts, maybe baklava or something like that. If anybody has suggestions for me, please tell me, because it will be a cool thing. It's especially the first few weeks, it's going to be so packed. It's going to be ridiculous. So we do have that, and that's being held in Queens. So that's good. What do you do, AJ? Your name rings a bell. I think you're affiliated with. What do you wear? You buy Harry's stuff, I think. It is food only. Oh, you'll be able to sell what you have. No, it's food only. He considered. Well, actually, it's not food only. He considered everything, but he wanted to keep it focused. So if you have non-food items, they must be culturally significant in some way. So you might be selling a mask from somewhere, or some of these aura-centric. Okay, right. So I don't have anything like that. He did kind of say if he couldn't get enough vendors, that he would accept like Hello Kitty items or something. I guess under the notion that that's from Japan or something. But I was like, what are you talking about? And he he never went through with that. But it would be interesting if there was another part of it. In fact, Queens would benefit so much from this. In fact, I don't know why he's holding it in the parking lot of the thing. It should be held in where I scoped from the other day, at least about a mile from it. The park I was in is about it's probably 3 miles long. So I only walked in a few blocks of it for anybody who saw it. There's another part with a lake, and there's another part with other things and so on. So, but around that globe, to let people exhibit around that globe would be absolutely fantastic. Yes, I've thought about organizing my own market. The problem is it's too much work. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, Harry's a cool guy and he's up to a lot of stuff lately. One problem is I'm not completely healthy yet. The other is, I think to successfully do a flea market, you have to have $500,000 for the ready. First of all, your market may fail, so you need to compensate for that. Second of all, you have to pay ridiculous fees, and they probably want a lot of it up front. So probably up front they want $100K just to move it along, right? And you're dealing with the city. The city has so much red tape that is ridiculous. There's really no other land that's private, right? The insurance as well. And by the way, people do get hurt at flea markets. In fact, I have insurance for some flea markets because they require me to do insurance for my canopy. And I've seen vendors get hurt, and I've seen customers get hurt, and I've heard about people getting killed. I actually don't believe those stories, but apparently it's possible. So there's things like that. The insurance isn't too bad. I paid $300 a year for the canopy for the first location, which is the Meadowlands. And if I go to any other markets, it'll be $50 more. And I've done stuff like indoor markets where it was $100 for a month, etc., etc. As well, if you was focusing on flea markets, but you can also go to cons. You can go to exhibit halls. Hotels have little markets and all this other stuff. Some of them sometimes may also require that. In fact, you get in a lot of trouble in some cases because some of the non-flea market things are union-based. And unions, for whatever benefit they have for themselves, as a vendor, unions suck because your hands are tied. You can't even sneeze at a lot of convention centers and so on because of that. And there's liability concerns behind a lot of those things that the union is semi-worried about. You know, they don't want you hooking something up. Do you recommend flea markets? I do a lot of them, so I guess so. I can't imagine a union shop for a market. Right, not a flea market, but convention centers, especially the city and state-owned ones, and lots of hotels have them too. The hotels often are willing to look the other way, especially when if they're holding a high-end show, like let's say it's the kind of stuff you see on the Antique Roadshow, a really super vintage place with high-end merchandise, then they're going to expect those people to pay. But for instance, like I've exhibited in Manhattan at the Jacob Javits Center, selling computer software and stuff like that. And they often let us do little things that we want to do. Like you're supposed to be required for them to staple on a tablecloth onto your table and pay $50 for that. And this is 20 years ago. I don't know what the price is now. And it was like to the point of like, you kidding me? You kidding me? Right? So we would just do nonsense stuff. In fact, we would just scribble on the papers. They would give us papers and we would just scribble on them and say, no, we didn't sign that. You know, that kind of a thing. Because it was just so bureaucratic, so money grabbing, so greedy. But I like flea markets. I make a lot of money. As with anything, you have to be consistent. You want people to know who you are, and you want them to know you're selling a quality product. If you're selling garbage, and especially if you're only there every so often, you're not going to make that sale. You want people, of course you want to sell to new people, but you also want people to know who you were and what you did, and that you didn't sell them a piece of junk. How much is it to use a spot at a flea market? In other words, what's the rent? Right. Repeat customers are your best friend in any business. They're your pals. They're your buddies. They're your only customer while they're standing in front of you. How much do I pay? It depends. I did a market with Charles Laverty. I don't know if he's still on here. On Friday for $2, which had mixed results because it ended up snowing. And the most high-end one is the Stormville one I'm going to do. Right, that's the daily rent. The Stormville one I'm going to do next Sunday is going to be $130. But I'm definitely going to pay that $130 because I'm going to make Umongo cash. So unless it rains or something, and then I've lost it. But so it's that variable. And I'm mainly referring to outdoor markets. Indoor markets immediately go skyrocket, but there's not many indoor markets. And then you can. I'm giving you the daily fees. There's also monthly rates. Like at the Meadowlands, I pay. Well, it depends on the number of weekends. So it's like $80 a weekend. So it's about $300 a month. For Columbus on Thursdays, it's $90 a month. And then I have a spot on Thursdays that I don't actually use, but I use it to get into the place. How much is it to rent a spot? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So if you can do it daily, where you walk in. So like last Friday was $2 for just a spot, and the place I'm going to do next week, as one example to the other extreme, is $130. The average price is maybe $50. There's one in Brooklyn that's $85. I think it just went up to $90. So that's your daily spot. And you can also get a monthly spot. So you can either pay 4 times the daily spot if it's once a week, or 5 times that if there's 5 weekends in the thing. Some markets are open, just Tuesdays. Some of them are open Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Some are open Saturday and Sunday only. So it varies to where you're going. Some markets you also would base your price on whether you have a corner spot or whether you have a spot in row 1, because that's where lots of things happen a little more better than getting a spot, say, in the whole center of the flea market or something like that. The strategies to pick your spots and so on. Some of the markets know that. Some don't care, but some do care. So if you're going to get more traffic, they're going to charge you more for that spot. It's not double and triple, but it could be 50% more. So like in Brooklyn, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 85 or 90 now, and to get a corner spot, I think it's up to 120. So it's almost, that's 50% more. And it's really the New York City markets, or the New York City. The closer you get to New York City, the more expensive it is. So like Columbus is 37. I sell new stuff only. Some other markets I do a 5 or 10. Englishtown, I think right now is 30. I don't remember all the numbers, but they're within those kind of vicinities. Hello, Tom. Hey. We're just doing random Q&A about exhibiting it somewhere or being a buyer, because you can source stuff at flea markets too. A lot of you guys doing your pickings and so on at a good market or even a bad market. Often the vendors don't know what they have, or they're just trying to get rid of it. Yes, nice to see you again. There's often some markets let you go anywhere, so there's new and used mixed, and some markets physically separate them. There's a new section and a used section. So if you're a pickings guy, you can go to the used section and get some good stuff. If you're still a pickings guy, you can go to the new section and still try to pick up stuff. Right? I'm selling dollar cables. You can't beat that. You can't even get that at a wholesale price. So if you want to buy 100 cables from me or 1,000 cables from me, go ahead. AJ does stuff from Harry. Everybody's seen some of his videos where people buy the box loads from him. So they're wholesaling from him, and they're going to resell it. They're not buying 100 boxes from him to slap on their faces. So you can source that. And that's indirectly how I started some of this. I mentioned that flea market earlier. Some of my earliest memories is I remember sourcing M&M earbuds. The guy wanted like $3 each, and I was like, give me them all. I watched Charles walk by some $100 Pyrex on his Victor. Yeah. And the vendors do not know what they have. And Pyrex is the dope. Pyrex is definitely the dope. And that's in the used part. Right? They're normally family run. The vendors are normally just family run. They're not business savvy per se. In fact, some of the vendors are there just to use their time up. They might be retired and it's an extra source of income. They're not like you and I. I'm assuming other people listening to this are like myself, where this is part of our income stream and it's significant, and we use a business strategy and techniques, and we use street smarts and our savvy and all these other things. Do you do much bulk business on the $1 cables? No, oddly I don't. The most bulk stuff I do is through eBay with it. I experimented by bringing it down to $1 to try to get that. So I finally got people to start buying 10 at a time. And I did that by actually packaging them up as 10. So I'm going to try to put out boxes of larger ones too. A thing I have a problem, yeah, I see hearts. Give me hearts, bros. Invite and swipe. Swipe and invite. Whatever the hell, right? Yes, a lot of people like that. But there's some people. I was with somebody on Columbus on Sunday, 2 spots away from me. They were 75 years old, and sharp as a whip. And they went out there just to get, make believe they're at the beach. They were there to sell. So that was pretty cool to see. But that said, most of the vendors, I don't know what the percent really is, but there's lots of family-run businesses doing it, and this is their bread and butter. So it's important. Let's see, where am I? I think I got myself lost here. Let's see. What does that say? DeKalb Avenue. So it can get pretty cutthroat. I've alluded in a few other scopes about how some vendors tried to get me thrown out of a couple of markets. And I believe underneath it all, that's what some of it was often about. If I did a new market just to experiment or test it out, or I come back a few times, I'm stomping on their territory. I'm trying to send kids to college, but so are they. And if I'm the new guy on the block who's going to undersell them or compete or whatever, they don't want that, so they're going to complain about me, whether it's justified or not. How far am I from my destination? I'm heading to Manhattan right now. I'm probably about halfway there. I was supposed to turn off at a street about 3 miles ago. So what I'm going to do is weasel myself through Brooklyn now. I'm going to get into Manhattan through Brooklyn. So I got to find out where the hell I am. I come from Brooklyn, by the way, everybody. Represent! You can't tell from my accent. But I lived in New York City for my whole life. I'm 50-something. I don't know my age. I'm 50-something years old, but I'm over 55. I know that. I'm 50-something years old. I lived here all my life. I had somebody about 2 weeks ago ask me if I was from Scotland. Like, bro, what you talking about? From Scotland? But most people think I'm from Boston. I have no idea why. It's like, hey, yo. How you doing? How you doing? Hey, how you doing? Forget about it. Right, bling is right. Right, when you're doing your listings, I may have missed some messages that come up. When you're doing wholesale on, say, eBay, you're not gonna make that sale every day unless you can get some super synergy. So what you can do is allocate extra stock. Oh, I know where I am. Okay. You're going to allocate extra stock and don't touch it, because if it ends up selling and you don't have it, you're going to get screwed up, especially on eBay. You're going to get a what do you call it? Yeah, let me turn here, bro. Come on, let me turn. Oh, you know what? Let me go down here. Johnson. And some things could take a few weeks. Years, but he always gets his price. I missed something. I would never wait years for anything. But what I have, Yeah, don't wait years for something. Although I do have some merch that I've had sitting for years. I have about 1,000 speakers upstairs in my house from a epic failure I did at a conference in Oregon, and I need to start getting rid of them. I probably mentally compartmentalized them so that they're out of my mind. But there were Chinese bicycle speakers, good stuff. You turn one plate from $1 to $2.35, but it took a year. Yeah. So what I do is, in terms of something like that, so I'm doubling my money. If somebody sees some of my scopes, every Monday I'm posting a scope showing my eBay orders just from Sunday alone. You just have to wait, not with new stuff. Right, if you have some antique thing, try to play with it. A lot has to do with pricing, and a lot has to do with what you write. If you write, I guess we're going to move away from Q&A about exhibiting somewhere, but if you're on eBay showing something like a antique plate, don't just write in the description, this is an antique plate. It ain't going to do nothing. Make sure your photos are excellent, top quality. Make sure the lighting is not screwed up. Make sure the coloring especially is right. With the eBay buyer guarantee thing, there's lots of stupid nonsense that happens. Make sure you package that sucker properly, and make sure you describe it properly. Mention the dimensions. Mention the listings. Get a fisheye thing. Get a close-up lens. Do everything. If there's a crack, you better show that thing. If something's beautiful, you better show that too. I market my stuff from eBay on Facebook and Instagram. Right. Yeah, that's reasonable. I don't do that, and I don't do that just because I never got to be able to do it. But I would like to expand into lots of different things. As good as I'm doing, I find that what I'm doing is still limited, and that the horizon and the levels of peeling off the onion or adding on onion levels is fantastic, and it's never better than now. I mean, who'd have thought we'd be talking on Periscope? I'm driving into Manhattan talking to a bunch of people on Periscope. So there's just so much wonderful stuff we can tap into, whether it's Craigslist, Instagram, Facebook. There's Blab. There's going to be all these new stuff coming out. And once you have it perfect, you have to wait for a person who is filling a collection. Yes. There's pros and cons to everything. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. So you always have to do that, and you always have to break your neck. Everybody with the get quick rich schemes, they don't exist. At least I never found one. And in fact, I almost never tried. I think there's lots of silliness, and it's just people wasting their money. Trying to think. Let's see, where am I? I'll get closer to the bridge. So what about flea markets, conferences, exhibits, and shows? Only briefly, but there's markets like that. So there's Craigslist, there's Mercari, there's Wallapapa, whatever the hell you say it. I don't know how to say it. Walla something. And I think even eBay has a classified section. So there's or a classified app or something like that. There's just so many places to do it now. There's Etsy obviously too. I've been thinking again, probably Etsy might be the next thing. In fact, there's a person I know that I'm probably going to have source some stuff for me. She makes stuff by hand, and I think it would be a cool thing for her. I'm just trying to run through my brain to find things, which I may also turn out selling at the flea market. She just had a baby, and that would be a cool source of income for her, and no, it's not my baby, and for her family and her husband and so on. So what other questions do we have about flea markets, conferences, exhibitions, shows, as either a buyer or a seller? I use OfferUp. Yes, there's OfferUp. And there's probably one or two more of them that escapes me in a second. What sources do you find? Repeat that. Repeat the last question. Something about what sources do you find? By the way, the people in the scope like AJ Santana, follow him. Bling Gnome, follow him, especially for the replayers. Again, I'm EnvyThisStuff at gmail.com if you want to reach me. Pretty low-key guy, and I'll answer any questions anybody has as long as they're not ridiculous or take up hours and hours and hours of my time. I try to multitask myself. Like I'm driving into Manhattan and doing this scope at the same time. I should know better than send you without copying. Yeah, you should. How dare you? We mentioned Wholesale Harry as well. Follow him. He's on Periscope. He's also on Instagram and on YouTube. It's Hustler1, H-U-S-T. No, H-U... Yeah, I think it's H-U-S-T-11-E-R. He has some pretty cool videos. Not sure he's posted any recently, but... and you can see Harry live at flea markets. Totally amazing. And it's all real. It's not scripted. It's not nonsense. It's how he sells, and that works for him. If you want to see one strategy to do, what do you find and plan the convention stores you're going to attend? I don't go to any conventions anymore. I used to do software and hardware stuff, so those I just did them mainly locally. But I was often an invited speaker to a lot of places to talk about technology and computer programming and other things like that. So wherever I ended up, I would often exhibit at the same time. So often it went hand in hand with that. The conference I exhibited at in Oregon, that was the Epic Failure. I might as well tell that story because it's kind of related to all this. And I think I may have said it, but if it was, then we might meet on Sunday. I'm probably going to be at Columbus on Sunday, and he often goes there. In fact, I'm going to be at Columbus probably tomorrow as well. So I don't know what his schedule is, but might see me on his Periscope. All right. Yeah, you're going to witness something amazing. Cool. I will see you on the scopes I sent. So as an example, to show how what goes through my mind maybe in some cases. So my daughters currently are 20 and 15. See, I know their ages, but not mine. They're 20 and 15, and they're really into Harry Potter. And so we go to a whole bunch of Harry Potter conferences. So like there's going to be one at the end of July or something, because I think his birthday's on July 31st. So the conference usually teeters back and forth in those few days. I noticed that, most of the people in this conference, they're tech savvy, right? They're all tech savvy. So, and it's mainly a younger college age audience. So we're talking high teens and 20-somethings. So I figured, okay, these people all have Samsungs and LGs and HTCs and whatever, and we've been going to this conference maybe 5 or 6 years, and every year they're posting. They're really at least at the time, they were super into YouTube. In fact, some of them are famous YouTubers who go to this conference. So YouTube became a centric area for this conference. In fact, I've posted YouTube videos based on the conference, not with me in it, but just to show what goes on in it and so on. So I figured, since I sell small electronics, what better place to do this, to sell my thing? In the meantime, we could pay for the trip. Well, the long story short is, I had my merch sent directly from China to the place. So that's number one. So I would have had it sent to me anyway. But They lost it. It got to the convention center and nobody knew where it was. So it took me about a day to find it. So finally I find it, and the conference finally goes on. So the long story short is, I was able to pay for the conference, but I broke even almost to the dollar. It turns out I didn't sell much of the merch. I only sold enough to pay for the conference and the hotel and the airfare and so on. Right, I'm in New York City, and we had the thing. So what really killed it was the place told me, because I ended up with a lot of merch and I was going to ship it back home. So I ended up with a lot of merch, and they told me, oh yeah, use our carrier. A bunch of eBay and Amazon scalpers just went live, so folks will be catching the replay here. Okay. So long story short was, I had to pay like $2,500 to have all the stuff shipped back to me, which is ridiculous because it didn't even cost that much coming from China. So that kind of shows an example of what can screw up and some of the logic involved with it. So here I was thinking I had the perfect audience, and in some ways I did. And here was my failure. My failure was that since this was a Harry Potter conference, that also teethed into other areas, so maybe also involved with Buffy and vampire stuff, and I don't know. I have to check. I don't even know where I have them at the moment. So what happened is when people went to the exhibit hall, they didn't want electronics. They wanted wands, and they wanted costume stuff to do cosplay and stuff like that. So what happened was I got my demographics right in terms of age, but wrong in terms of what they thought they were there for. So if they had $100 in their pocket, they weren't going to buy a speaker. They were going to buy 2 wands and a Harry Potter robe set or something, right? So you could bundle the excess thumb drives with the excess speakers. Yeah, I probably could. Well, actually, I got rid of half the flash drives. So, right, I'm driving over the. There's part of Manhattan. So I'm going to end the scope probably in about 10 minutes. Should be where I'm trying to get to at that point. So that's an example of the logic I used to enter a so-called real con and how it backfired on me. But most of the other cons I've ever gone to as an exhibitor made perfect sense. And not only did I sell product, but it was there to publicize myself because I was a speaker. And you guys should consider that too if you whatever niche you're into, or niche, however you want to say that. If anybody wants to know how to say that word, you can see Seth Meyers on YouTube from about 2 days ago, where they cover that word extensively. N-I-C-H-E. Live and learn. Yep. At the end of the day, we went there to have fun, and I did end up. The conference didn't cost me anything when all was said and done, despite all the hassles. And the best hassle was the people held my merchandise hostage until I paid them an extra light truck fee because they claimed I lived in a residential area, despite that not being true, even though technically it probably is. And then when they finally delivered it, I wasn't home. And they just threw it all on the street. So wonderful, wonderful stuff. What other questions we got about? Wait, why isn't this guy going? Am I supposed to go? People are beeping at me or him. I don't know who. All right. So if you don't have a loading dock, you are residential. Yeah, I found that out the hard way. They were just going to throw it on the curb either way. I was fine with that. It was the fact that I wasn't home. What other questions we got about flea markets? Either as a buyer or a seller, or somebody considering Like, what's a major problem somebody might have considering to be a vendor at a flea market? I'm EnvyThisStuff at gmail.com. And we're trying to talk about buying and selling stuff at shows, whether the show is an exhibit, a con, a flea market, indoor or outdoor, weekday, monthly, daily, special events. Could be a street fair, right? It doesn't. So there's all these things. I've done street fairs too, not recently though. I used to sell art with my wife through Manhattan and so on, and through other places. So we've done a lot of street fairs as well. She did photography. So this guy has forgotten more than most people ever knew about flea markets. Yeah, I need to put that up as a sign behind me. So I've been to a lot of markets that way. And in cases of, say, that stuff, we tried to do more upscale locations for things like that. Although we did exhibit at some town flea market, some town, I don't know what they called them. They weren't literally street fairs, but the sign is actually a good idea. So, yeah, and I guess let me try and think this through. Yeah, for a few decades now, I guess, now that I think that through. I often forget about doing that because we stopped doing it when my children were born. We got into in fact, we got into a fight over it. But we did an art show at the Brooklyn Promenade, which is a part of Brooklyn that faces into Manhattan. You used to be able to look at the Brooklyn Bridge on the right-hand side, and really the thing that qualified it, looking straight forward, was the World Trade Center, which is now just the Freedom Tower replaced it. And we got caught in a super storm one day. It just flew up out of nowhere. It was like insane. And we had to pack the stuff up with my daughter, who was about 3 at the time. And she went nuts. My daughter went nuts. And I told my wife, we can't ever do this again. It wasn't fair to my daughter. And up until then, we did a lot of markets with my daughter. And it's rained and so on, but we were never in anything like that before. There was glass flying all over, and people put up these false fences to hang your artwork on and so on. And they have holes in them. They're like chicken coop kind of things. They were flying all over the place. So I was like, nope, we can't do this again with her, especially in bad weather. And we kind of never did one after that. So that's another part of my life story. Yeah, it gets hard, especially when you have to carry stuff back and forth. You weren't allowed to bring your car out of there, and technically the Brooklyn Promenade is part of what's called Gateway National Park, so the National Police are patrol it, and you couldn't even double park to get your stuff in and out. So it was silly that they allowed an art show to be there when you couldn't bring your merch back and forth. But, oh, see, now you say I have a New York accent, but most people think I don't. There are reasons that there are any. There is the reason there aren't any outdoor markets in North Dakota. The wind is impossible. Yeah. Although that said, which is, by the way, the reason you did insurance for a lot of markets. Most people, in fact, I'll make that a question, or a statement rather. Most people don't know what to do with their canopies. You must tie your canopy down. If it's the deadest day in the world with 0 miles per hour, tie your pop-up canopy, your metal canopy, whatever you brought, whether even if it's a beach umbrella, tie it down, because there will be some point in the day where a wind comes out of nowhere and foof, that's it. So, and I've seen so many canopies just totally destroyed. Breaking through windshields and other stuff like that too, just because people didn't have a clue, and many of them, you could say, a new vendor would do that. Yes, many new vendors do that, but a lot of them are actually old vendors, and it's like, bro, you didn't tie down your canopy? Oh, it was nice out. No, you got it. So the first thing I do, different people set up this stuff different way. I put my canopy up first, and I will not put up my tables. It's like a ritual without bungee cording, and I have barbell weights that I tie it down with. So then at that point, and in fact, I hook it up to my car, so it's weighted against my car. So I hope to God my canopy is not going to flip my car over. But most people don't realize that. Strings are your friend, bungee cords are your friend, and don't just do this little baby knot. You got to do a super duper knot, or something with the super hook. Lots of places, Home Depot and other places have straps and so on you can buy. Some are rubber, some are bungee cords, some are the thick strap things. Realize that if you use bungee cords, they will break eventually. So I'm not saying not to use bungee cords. In fact, I use them. But once they look like they're shot, get rid of them immediately. The rubber piece inside of it breaks. Yeah, I do that. Thank you, Bling. The problem is I can't always get the full list. In fact, this week I was looking at fullscope.tv, and I believe they're giving me the full list. Thrift Picker is Angie. You will love her. I'm at a light, so if Angie says something, I can catch it. Yes, bungee. Whoop! Don't block her. Let's see. Okay, I followed Angie. Yes, and bungee cords are nice and quick. In fact, people like to hold down their merch with it. There's some clothing vendors. The wind is big enough, strong enough, often to blow a shirt off the table or a pants off the table. So if you bring it from one side of the table and put a bungee cord across the whole thing to the other side, it'll stick. You can also bungee cord your canopy to your table, although be careful, because some tables are often very light. So don't depend on the table to keep it down. And I've seen people who thought that was the solution, and not only did their canopy go flying away, but the table did too. And imagine for yourself, imagine a normal bag you get from the supermarket, right? Can you imagine that? That you get your groceries in. Imagine if it's a windy day and you went like this, whoosh, and it goes flying off like a balloon. Now imagine somebody's whole canopy does that, right? A 12 by 12 foot canopy flying up in the air. I'm not talking about 10 feet, 50, 60 feet like a balloon. Okay, and that's going to come down and hit somebody. And it's going to be your fault. Yeah, it's very dangerous. And what vendors don't realize too is when it gets windy, it's time to take your canopy down. Okay? I like to use a canopy because I hate the sun, and I also put up signs on it. I think that's very important. Signage is important. But once it gets too windy and it's jerking around, take the tarp off it. And if you have a pop-up, you can still take the top off it. Right? You can still, if you have stuff hanging off it, then you might be okay. Some people put a pop-up and they hang hundreds of pounds of clothes off it. That's usually pretty good. And by the way, the weightage you need doesn't need to be anything extensive. I use, I think, 20-pound weights on each foot. But again, the opposite side is both the feet are tied down to my car. Some people like to get PVC piping that they fill up with concrete. Some people like to use cinder blocks. I use the weights because I have a Tucson. My car is too small. I need to get a van. I missed the last comment again. I need to get a van. And some people, there's actually weights that they sell that slip into the feet of the pop-up canopies. So wind is a major problem. Is he letting us go? Yes. Wind is a major problem at a flea market. Also, merchandise can fly off your table and smack into somebody's face. Or if you have a sign up, the sign can either fall off or whack them in the head. So wind is a major problem, even on the calmest day, especially in the New York City area, if anybody was here. It may not be true for other areas, but we have an issue that around 3 o'clock our wind direction turns. At least I believe it does. And I believe that the root of that is that the landmass heats up enough that it starts sucking the ocean air and going up. So, right, if anybody's on the replay, please follow me. You can remember you can still invite people on the replay, at least through Twitter. I'm EnvyThisStuff@gmail.com. Right, bling is Russell. That's all I know. All right, I'm in a traffic jam, so I said this scope would end in 10 minutes, but I'm still 10 minutes away. I've actually only gone about 2 blocks since I told you guys that. They got the road ripped up. By the way, I'm on my way to meet a distributor. How do you scope your flea markets? The same way I'm scoping now, with the same phone. I don't actually scope them that much. I'm new to periscoping. I want the good things in life. That is my push to make money at flea markets and in real estate. Okay, yeah. But I use the phone. I have an iPhone 5. I'm thinking of getting another phone with a better battery. Oh, if I did. No, I don't do it too much. I should probably do it more, because I find that people are sending me messages saying to show me the market and show me what you're selling and show me how you're selling it and stuff like that. So normally my daughters do it with me, but they're so caught up with school at the moment. So not really getting free time. You should scope your meats more. Meats? What's a meat? I mean meat and Laverty and so on? What I also want to know is when I'm selling that nobody's stealing my merchandise and stuff too, because I do get enough. I have to build that into my pricing, that somebody's going to steal stuff. So I don't want to find that I was scoping and people walked away with half the table, stuff like that. So oh, swap meets? No, we don't really have as many as those here. The Valley Stream Market, where I originally met Harry, was called the swap meet. In fact, I think it originally started as a swap meet, but I never went there when it was literally a swap meet. That said, I've been to some swap meets now that I think of it. I was to the Trenton Computer Fair, which is in Trenton, New Jersey, which is the state capital of New Jersey. That was a swap meet. Was held at Trenton College or something like that. I don't remember. So you should scope your flea markets. Flea markets are the exact same thing. Okay. So to conclude what I was saying, I believe my daughters are going to be with me this weekend. So I'll probably get a chance to do it. I got spoiled in Pennsylvania. Yep, you probably did. By the way, I mainly do flea markets in New Jersey, but also in New York, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. Those are the 4. How was the swap meet and flea markets in California? Pennsylvania in the house. Pennsylvania represent. I go to Rice's, if you know where that is. Rice's Flea Market. And I've gone to look at some others, but never actually did them. I think. Right, like Bling says, I've probably forgotten more things than most people ever remember, or something like that. So the problem I have now with new markets is that since I'm tied up doing so many other things, it's hard to go on a day to look at a new market when maybe I should be exhibiting at another one or being a vendor at another one. Hello, everybody. I'm not watching the comments because I'm in deep traffic. So now I'm on 6th Avenue, and I'm probably about 20 blocks from where I'm going to be at this moment. And I'm in a traffic jam, so I should be able to look at what you guys are saying now. Multi-generational people in Pennsylvania. Yep, there is. It's okay to be careful. I like talking to myself. That's an important skill to have, people. It's not being crazy. Talking to yourself is important, which is one of the reasons why I started the scoops. Because I find when I have long drives, I get into these mental debates and I do a lot of thinking. So, in fact, we did a scope a couple of days ago, which is now on Catch Me, about thinking about thinking. Thinking is super duper important, but doing is important too. So don't think you can overthink things, which I probably do. So doing is important too. So what other questions we have about flea markets, or answers, or statements? Radio helps. Yeah, I don't have Sirius. Roy is in the house. Don't know who Roy is, but yo, Roy. Right, so I've scoped a lot about flea markets in the New York City area, so to speak, or the 100-mile radius around it. Who else has experience actually doing flea markets, or is considering one, or has a story to tell about it? That would be interesting to hear how it differs from my experiences. And it doesn't have to be a flea market. It could be a show, a con, an exhibit, something in a hotel. Yep, it sure does. I even ask myself questions out loud sometimes. Don't do them here in Arizona. Right, I'm not even sure. There's probably not many there. My brother lives in Arizona, and I've never heard him mention one, despite all the talk I have about them. The records warp easily because of they're being put out in the heat, or they're not being put straight up and down. Yeah, I get to see a lot of cool records too. I know the problem I have at the moment is I can't really get to see anybody else's stuff anymore because I'm either setting up, taking down, or too busy. I sold electronics at swap meets in San Diego. That must have been fun though. You probably got to see some cool stuff. Yeah, I've gotten to see P2P8s and some other early DE deck equipment, and Osborne 1 computers and K-Pros and early stuff like that, early Apple computers. Actually, I still have an Apple II somewhere. In fact, I think I have 2 or 3 Apple IIs somewhere. Hiya. Hello, everybody who's joining. I'm on 6th Avenue in Manhattan. I'm heading to Macy's, the greatest store in the world. No, I'm not heading to Macy's. Nobody has any other questions about flea markets, shows, cons, exhibits, street fairs, how to be a vendor? On the replay, if anybody's catching that, you can invite followers there through Twitter. You can follow me. You can even give me hearts right now. Best story is the off-brands. There we go. I know someone doing real estate in California. Guy is loving this stuff. Ever make it to the Columbus, New Jersey one? Yeah, I have a spot there for tomorrow. I go there often. I go there maybe 75% of the times that they have it, unless it's snow or some other nonsense like that. Yeah, I sell small electronics and accessories. So not only is it like most people would say I sell cell phone accessories. I don't believe that's an accurate description of what I do, because I also sell other stuff that's not related to cell phone stuff. For instance, I might sell cables also for like a DSI, or sometimes I sell controllers. I sell speakers, which more New Jersey. Hey, don't insult me, man. I ain't from New Jersey. Don't mess with me. I'm from Brooklyn. Do you hear me? I'm from Brooklyn. Is anybody on here from a does anybody on here have a gigantic flea market near them? And if you do, first of all, define gigantic, and then tell us something about it. Do you do Amazon or eBay? I do eBay. I used to be on Amazon. In fact, I left both of them for 2 years, and I restarted my eBay stuff for the most part this January. I actually started last summer, and I'm still going to build it up. I'm also EnvyThisStuff on eBay, and I do not remember my Amazon name. And the reason I'm not on Amazon is I just never got to it. We covered that kind of earlier. There's lots of different electronic avenues to sell your products on, and I'm going to hopefully eventually expand to them all. I do other stuff too. I don't just do this, and I should probably make some decisions about that too. You should never give out your Amazon name ever. Why is that? I can't wait till I'm old enough to do eBay. Why do you have to be old enough to do eBay? If there's an age requirement on it, why is nobody in your family working with you to support any considerations you have about doing that thing? That would be an excellent experience for somebody. Whoever wrote that, how old are you? Who said they're not old enough to do eBay? I will be 18 in November. Does eBay have an 18-year-old age limit? Because if they do, try to get somebody who is old enough to work with you. You establish it, and when you're 18, it can be transferred to you in some way, just by giving you a password. No, but my mom has a limit. Oh, okay. So then, well, anybody, even an above 18-year-old person is going to have a limit. When you start out in a lot of these places, I think Amazon has the same thing. You're going to have a limit. You don't have a credit account. You could have one. It's almost impossible they can't. Like, I'm looking forward to do real estate in North Carolina. So, what are you saying? Going to be 18 in November? So that's what, 6 months? So, you should be thinking, if you think there's some hard limits to pursue what you want to do, that you have a couple of things. First of all, is you can start pretending you already have the account. So start figuring out where you're going to get your products from, how you're going to price them, how you're going to package them, start learning about shipping, right? Because that kills a lot of people. In fact, a lot of people don't consider shipping at all, and they lose their money because of that. And since this scope is about flea marketing, is it possible you can start selling your merch so you can get more familiar with the merch itself and how to deal with customers and things like that at a flea market that's near you? I sell already. I do mine through Craigslist and Facebook. Okay, that's great. That's great. So you have enough experience. Well, at least you have some experience with dealing with people and working with the merch and where you get it from and negotiating with them, and also on the opposite side, buying and selling to customers. So what do you just drive around in a car and deliver it based on your ad, or people come to you, or what? Right. All right, so that I think is going to be very handy for you. You may not have a good understanding about shipping and so on, but in the meantime, use your time, any free time you have, to start figuring out what's the parts you don't understand about eBay or whatever, and get into that. And obviously, there's lots of people scoping about things, and there's blogs about a lot of things already, and stuff like that. So that you're in a way you're off and running already, because you have some familiarity with your products and so on, and how to deal with people and so on. But when you finally get the account to say in your name, you can be totally off and running. I didn't see that last comment. All right, I'm past the traffic jam, so I still have 20 blocks to go. It's like I'm never moving here. I always have 20 blocks to go. Where I am. I'm on West 10th Street. I'm 1 block away from what used to be my favorite pizza, Ray's Pizza. And now it is something like, let me see what it says. Hanju. I think it's a Japanese restaurant. Terrible thing. I'm a turntable snob myself. I thought you would. Alright, so I'm about 5 blocks from where I need to go. But I need to park. I'm going to try to park on the street, which is technically impossible. So let's see what happens first. Subwoofers, yeah. I sell a lot of speakers at the flea markets, by the way, people. The right speaker, especially if you're playing it live, can sell you a lot of speakers. If you're selling a garbage speaker, you may or may not get as much. And if you have a counterfeit speaker like a Beats one, you're probably going to make a lot of money, but you're not doing something legal. In fact, that's a problem I have often. I might have somebody a few tables away from me selling counterfeit Beats speakers, and that kills my business completely. And it's not fair. In those cases, I complain to the market. It's one thing to have a generic speaker, but it's another thing to claim you're selling somebody else's speaker when you're not. So, and I would suggest other people do that too. Generic stuff is fine. Everybody has generic stuff. I'm driving a generic car right now. Right, a Tucson. There's a whole bunch of cars that look the same as this. So, generic's no problem. When you're doing a knockoff or a counterfeit, that's a different story. By the way, you need a tax ID to do most flea markets, so you should have one ready so that you don't get thrown out of the flea market, or you don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and drive 2 hours to realize that they're not going to let you set up because you don't have one. In fact, some markets require you to have a receipt book as well, and you have to give each customer a receipt. I think that's pushing it, but and keep track of your money so you don't lose it, and keep track of your money so you can do your taxes properly. Keep track of your money so you know how much merch you sold and or should be buying. Right? At least in my case. I want to have a booth at my flea market, but have not gotten that far. Well, here's the good news about flea markets, by the way. I've seen everything, including the kitchen sink being sold there. And it's often the guy, when you pass it, you say, man, that's a bunch of junk. That guy will be packed and he'll sell out. So the good news about flea markets in general is you can pretty much sell anything. Anything. So if you even have stuff from your house or whatever, then just set up a table, especially if it's the right price. If you did a flea market like I did last Friday, which is $2, the only hindrance is getting yourself there. Because even if you only have one thing to sell, you might still end up profiting, right? If you sell something for $100 and it costs you $2, well, I think you made $98. And you can start out that way. Mine, I would do once a month so that way I don't have to get a tax ID. Right, some don't require it the first 1 to 2 times. But sometimes if they know you, they're gonna push you to get it. But some also have a count. Some they take down your name, some they don't take down your name. Some require you to show your driver's license. Some require you every single time. It doesn't matter if the guy looking at the thing is your brother or your mother. They're going to demand that you present your tax ID. Not a copy of it, the actual real tax ID. And in some markets, tax ID collectors do come around. No, I've never been presented. I've never had some of them come to me, but I've seen them at the markets I've been at. In fact, I haven't seen any lately, but you can look at the shoes to decide how much to charge them as well. I don't know if that's fair, but you are going to have yes, shoes say a lot. Maybe I should get I should get new shoes. Should I sculpt my shoes? Who wants to see my shoe? Type of 1. Yeah, I find when some of these people go on talk shows, these big stars, and they have a hole in their shoe, you're like, you're kidding me, bro. You're kidding me. Right? You would think in their green room or something, they had an extra pair of shoes for some of these celebrities and so on. No, I won't judge you by your shoes. Ah, man, I hit another traffic jam. You guys are jinxing me today. Let's see, what time is it? It's almost 1 o'clock. I don't know what's going on in here. What's today? Today's Wednesday, right? I don't know why there's so much traffic right now. Thanks for being live. Keeping busy while I'm sick in bed. Yeah, I listen to Scopes in the morning as I'm doing stuff. I don't necessarily watch the comments and so on, but if I'm packing orders or involved with something, I'll just have it playing in the background. So if nobody's posting comments or something, that's fine with me. Right? We're all in this together. We're trying to learn from each other. I don't have all the answers. I'm experienced in some of the stuff I'm talking about, but I do not have all the answers. I make mistakes. We all screw up, and it's what we do from there. I find I'm getting a lot of business advice from other scopers lately. Something that I kind of was savvy in and kind of lost it because my business focus has changed and so on. I'd also gotten sick for a while and so on. So I'm still trying to get myself back into that mental psyche of doing all that kind of stuff. And life is a journey. So in the meantime, I'm liking doing the flea market part of my business. You get fresh air, get to meet a lot of interesting people, and I mean a lot, both other vendors and customers, and you can make a good income. Everything just seemed to have gone dead. I'm about 3 blocks away from where I'm supposed to be going, and it's probably going to take me an hour at this point. Man. So is there any other questions about this? I'm kind of I'm pulling teeth on this, but as long as I'm driving, I have nothing else to do. So I might as well just keep talking. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Everything seems to have gone dead. Or should I peace out? I don't know who Donnie is, but good for you. All right, I'm going to peace out myself then. All right, everybody, thanks. I'll probably do this every 2 weeks or something, maybe a general Q&A about flea markets. So if anybody's considering flea markets, again, I'm EnvyThisStuff. If you're catching this on the replay, my email is EnvyThisStuff@gmail.com. The same name that's on Periscope. And you can also invite people through Twitter, even on the replay. All right, people, thank you. Goodbye.